Yo, it's Jojo, and in my Season 14 League of Legends journey, I thought it would be fun to go through all of the champions one by one in alphabetical order, because I have only played Jinx pretty much. I have like 300 games on Jinx, and that took me to Emerald, but I recently had a game where I faced an Illaoi, and I had no fucking clue what her abilities did, and I just pretty much died, and I couldn't figure out why the tentacles were hitting me sometimes a lot and sometimes not. So I figured now is the time. Now is the time to actually try out all of the champions, read all of their abilities, and not just rely on my Dota like skills and knowledge and like fundamentals, understanding what it takes to win. As long as I don't face heroes I don't know, I can still play the game. But that is not for this video. That is for an upcoming video. Now I'm gonna go through like the Aatrox champion spotlight, the trailers, and a video of Necrit where he does talk about the story of Aatrox, just to get some feeling for what the character is about. And then we're also gonna go through his abilities and his skins and all of that stuff in the game client. But for now, let's take a look at
Ancient weapon, Aatrox is hellbent on bringing total obliteration upon everyone who crosses his warpath. He's an unstoppable juggernaut that dishes out massive damage with mid-ranged attacks, fighting till death, and then some. Welcome to the Aatrox Champion Spotlight.
this video is old. The graphics, like 5-year-old video.
Aatrox's passive is Deathbringer stance. Every once in a while, Aatrox's next basic attack has increased range and damages the target for a percentage of their maximum health.
Okay.
This attack also reduces all healing and shielding on the target for a few seconds. Deathbringer stance's cooldown is slightly reduced whenever Aatrox activates an ability, and additionally when he lands the edge of his Q, the Darkened Blade, on a champion. Speaking of which, let's talk about his Q, the Darkened Blade. Aatrox swings his greatsword up to 3 times.
So much fun to have a combo ability.
Impacts a different
like Riven.
Effect. His Q has a sweet spot. Precise hits with the Darkened Blade further increase the damage and knock up targets. On the first cast, the sweet spot is at the very tip. On the second, it's along the outer edge. And on the final cast, it's at the very center, immediately in front of Aatrox. Each cast of the Darkened Blade brings the hitbox closer to Aatrox, so keep advancing to go 3 for 3.
Oh, the flash.
Also increases the damage, regardless if you landed the previous one, for about twice as much on the final cast. And that's what I call tons of damage. Aatrox can be a real bastard sword in lane. The range on his Q lets him poke, punish, and push lane against melee and even mid-range foes. You know what they say, two-handers are better than one. Aatrox W is Infernal Chains. Aatrox smashes the ground, damaging and slowing the first enemy hit. If it's a champion or large monster, they're chained to the impact area.
It's kind of like a tanky combo guy.
Drag to the center and take damage again. If they break free, they'll be insubordinate and churlish. Infernal Chains pulls enemies to the same spot every time. Use it to tee up a Q for the perfect smackdown. Aatrox's E is Umbral Dash, which can store up to 2 charges. Passively, Aatrox heals for a portion of the physical damage he deals. When activated, he dashes a short distance and gains attack damage for a few seconds. You can Umbral Dash in combination with his other abilities to reposition, helping you land abilities like the sweet spot of the Darkened Blade. Umbral Dash is usually too short, much like the real dash, to be used for chasing or escaping, but it's just enough to get you over some walls. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Use Umbral Dash
oh, how cute.
to match your opponent's movements and claim more Q hits. Aatrox's ultimate is World Ender.
Did you think you could kill me?
Aatrox unleashes his full might, becoming monstrous in size and taking flight on massive wings.
Can he fly over terrain?
Aatrox fears nearby minions and briefly increases his movement speed. The speed bonus is reactivated while out of combat. While transformed, Aatrox's attack damage is increased and he gains a blood well that revives him if he takes lethal damage.
Oh. Revives.
The blood well fills up over World Ender's duration, meaning the longer you've transformed, the more health you'll have upon reviving, as long as you die before you return to your puny humanoid form.
Oh. Wow. I did not know this.
Really wing it. The extra damage and revive means you can tower dive with impunity. When you're far away from the fight, you can ult early to give your Doom some zoom and arrive while the party is still going strong.
I just knew he healed and comboed. And became fast.
When you're ready to bring ruin, go big with World Ender. Once you're in the war zone, lock down lesser warriors with Infernal Chains and make them cry with a QQQ. As chaos unfolds, use Umbral Dash and Flash to stay on top of your fodder and treat them to the sweet spot of your blade. Don't bother running from a Darkin. None can escape their wrath. Thanks for tuning in to the Aatrox Champion Spot.
Okay, I think I get his abilities now. So I just saw him as like a combo guy. You poke with the Q1 because it has a long range and like pretty narrow, and then you like try to hit Q2 or Q3 with your together with your W. Like maybe you poke with Q1, and then if you hit a W with the Q2, they're gonna get knocked up, they're gonna get sucked in, and then you can hit the Q3 follow-up for the big damage. But I didn't know about the ult. I just knew this guy was healing a lot and was super fast. But I don't think I've ever killed him during his ult. I didn't know he resurrected. Oh well, that's why you play different champs, I guess. Is there anything different in this one?
Welcome. As a health choice
Oh,
for solo
oh, this is a 10-year-old video. Oh, this is very old.
the jungle. Aatrox's passive, Bloodwell, draws on the health cost of his abilities.
Oh, this is the old Aatrox. What the hell?
Fills, it grants additional attack speed. If Aatrox leaves combat, his blood total slowly decays.
Oh, this is so ugly.
Additionally, when
League
Aatrox
10
takes
years
fatal
ago.
damage, he becomes
Yeah.
unstoppable while he heals from the blood.
This is why I couldn't play League instead of playing Dota. Like, there's no way. Dota 2 came out in 2011. That's when I started playing Dota 2, at least. I mean, that was 13 years ago. Dota 2 looks so much better than this. How could you ever change from Dota 2 to this? But oh well. I digress.
Bloodwell. If Bloodwell is on cooldown, Aatrox still gains attack speed, though the bar turns gray to initiation ability. On use, he flies up or Nocturne's landed at his target.
Ah, okay. Anyway, no needs to this. Let's look at the champion teaser. Is this the new version? Yeah, 5 years ago. So this is his rework. Gotta say, the sword is fucking cool though. Jesus. Oh god, oh fuck. The demon lord is upon us. Gotta get some snacks. Okay. Okay. Yeah. You would not want to fight against that guy. Is there a difference between this one? Champion trailer? This is also 5 years ago? That is not the move, Kai'Sa. I am Aatrox. Ooh, the flash to hit the knock up on both. Insane. Okay. That was actually a really good champion spotlight. This really showcased all of his abilities. Nice. The polygons on this skin though. There's nothing here. Okay. Okay. Very cool. We're gonna have to look at some of the skins, but I think the red color suits him very well. Let's look at the story of Aatrox then.
whether mistaken for a demon or god. Many tales
5
have been
years
told
ago.
of the Darkened Blade, but few know his real name, or the story of his fall. Hello everyone and welcome to another story you are probably too lazy to read. This time we will have a look at Aatrox, the Darkin, and where the Darkin came from. So, because probably at this point you are waiting for far too long, let's go right into it. In ancient times, long before desert sands swallowed the Empire, a mighty champion of Shurima was brought before the Sun Disk to become the avatar for a now forgotten celestial ideal. Remade as one of the Ascended, his wings were the golden light of dawn, and his armor sparkled like a constellation of hope from beyond the Great Veil. Aatrox was his name. We are only few sentences into the story and it is already important to note that we are indeed talking about the Shuriman Ascended. Notice how their description is very close to that of the Targonians. You have the wings of Aatrox that are sparkling with constellations, and then you have the cloak of Pantheon that is shimmering with stars. As we go forward in these stories, notice how they are very similar indeed. He was at the vanguard of every noble conflict. So true and just was his conduct that other god warriors would always gather at his side, and 10,000 mortals of Shurima marched behind him. When Setaka, the Ascended Warrior Queen, called for his help against the rebellion of Icathia, Aatrox answered without hesitation. But no one predicted the extent of the horrors that the rebels would unleash. The void quickly overwhelmed its Icathian masters, and
What the hell
began
is
the
that?
grinding annihilation of all life it encountered. After many years of desperate battle, Aatrox and his brethren finally halted the void's perverse advance, and sealed the largest rifts shut. But the surviving Ascended, the self-described Sunborn, had been forever changed by what they had encountered. Though Shurima had triumphed, they all had lost something in their victory, even noble Aatrox. And in time, Shurima fell, as all empires must. So, we have the Shuriman Ascended fighting back the Void, and those who survived called themselves the Sunborn. But even though they had won, they were changed by these horrors. I hope you see where this is going.
Was Aatrox changed?
The monarch to defend, or the existential threat of the Void to test them. Aatrox and the Sunborn began to clash with one another, and eventually this became a war for the ruins of their world. Mortals fleeing the conflict came to know them instead by a new and scornful name, the Darkin. Fearing that these fallen Ascended were as dangerous to Runeterra's survival as the Void incursions had been, the Targonians intervened. It is said that the aspect of Twilight gave mortals the knowledge to trap the Darkin, and the newly reborn aspect of war united many in fighting back against them. Never fearing any foe, Aatrox and his armies were ready, and he realized only too late that they had been deceived. A force greater than 1,000 dead suns pulled him inside the sword he had carried into battle countless times, and forever bound his immortal essence to it. The weapon was a prison, sealing his consciousness in suffocating eternal darkness, robbing him even of the ability to die. For centuries he strained against this hellish confinement, until some nameless mortal was foolish enough to try and wield the blade once more. Aatrox seized upon this opportunity, forcing his will and an imitation of his original form onto his bearer. Though the process quickly drained all life from the new body. In the years that followed, Aatrox groomed many more hosts, men and women of exceptional vitality and fortitude. Though his grasp of such magics had been limited in life, he learned to take control of a mortal in the span of a single breath. And
So
in battle, he
he is
discovered
the
he
Lich
could
King.
feast on his victims to build himself even larger and stronger. So, to explain everything that happened, you have the Sunborn without an empire and without void spawns to slay. Being already touched by the Abyss, it was easier for them to start a war amongst themselves. It was a war for power and for leadership. But again, notice how Targon played a big role in manipulating the Darkin. Pantheon united all the people to fight them back. The aspect of Twilight gave people the means to seal them. And the Darkin were sealed with the power of 1,000 dead suns. And we all know a dragon whose punishment were dead suns. To me it seems like Targon created the Ascended with the purpose of fighting back the Void. But without the Void, the Ascended have no purpose. But that's just a theory, so let's keep going.
Makes
Aatrox
sense.
traveled the land, searching desperately, endlessly, for a way to return to his previous ascended form, but the riddle of the blade proved unsolvable.
So when the big fighter guys that have defeated the big evil start becoming too powerful, the leaders just throw them away or give like another group the power to seal. Seems like something that people in power would do.
And in time, he realized he would never be free of it. The flesh he stole and crudely shaved began to feel like a mockery of his former glory. A cage only slightly larger than the sword. Despair and loathing grew in his heart. The heavenly powers that Aatrox had once embodied had been wiped from the world and all memory. Raging against this injustice, he arrived at a solution that could only be born of a prisoner's desperation. If he could not destroy the blade or free himself, then he would embrace oblivion instead. Now Aatrox marches toward this merciless goal, bringing war and death wherever he goes. He clings to a blind hope. If he can drive all of creation into a final apocalyptic battle, where everything else is destroyed, then maybe he and the blade will also cease to exist. His bio is followed by a shorter story called
So it's another guy that just wants his life to end in a permanent battle. He's like the Valhalla warriors or some shit.
Cage.
Pretty cool.
A story from Aatrox's view while sealed inside the blade. Darkness. The breath I cannot take plagues me. It is an emptiness in my lungs and throat, as if I had stopped mid-breath and then held my lungs cruelly waiting. My mouth open, throat hollow, unable to pull in air. My chest, the horrible tension in my throats. My limbs and muscles refuse to move.
Oh, I'm laughing because this is pretty much how I feel right now. I've been sick for like a week in my throat. Maybe you can hear sometimes. I have so much just like gunk and shit in my nose and in my throat, and it just feels horrible. So yeah, Aatrox, I feel you, I feel you.
I cannot breathe. I am choking. The pressure builds. The stillness spreads to my chest and limbs. I want to scream, to tear at my face, to wail, but I am trapped. I cannot move. I cannot move. Darkness. I must remember. The battle. I lost control. It was foolish. The mortals formed in ranks against me.
It is pretty interesting though that this is like from the perspective of a person that is locked inside of a sword, because like in many manhwas and like Chinese mangas and stuff, there's always like masters or people that like reincarnate and like become swords or some shit in the future, or like they leave their body with their soul and then inhabit some kind of inanimate object for a while till they can find another host. So this seems like a pretty like standard trope, but they are often like chill, like being a sword. This guy, like, imagine not having any senses. Like, you can't see anything, you can't touch anything, you can't feel anything since you're a sword. His description matches that. Like, just darkness. You have these memories of being able to touch, to feel, to sense, to smell. But you can't. You're just a piece of metal, and you're stuck. You want to claw at your face, but it doesn't work. I mean,
I crashed into them, drank from them. The temptation
Poetic.
was too great. As I reaped, I reforged their flesh into a better approximation of my true shape. Desperately, I consumed more and more, hoping for the briefest echo of what I once was. Instead, like a fire, I burned too quickly, destroying even my host's form. Darkness. It was raining when we fought. What if the mud and filth cover me? What if I'm hidden for thousands of years? Trapped in this prison. The horror of that idea feeds my panic. The battle is ending. I can feel it. I must will my form upright. I have no arms or legs. The darkness binds me, like a cocoon. No, I will myself upright. But I can't know if it is working. I cannot know anything but the darkness. Please, let some mortal find me, please. I beg the darkness endlessly, but the humiliation of my plea is answered only with silence. But then, I feel a mortal nearby. I have no eyes, no ears, but I can feel his approach. He is fleeing from adversaries. He must try to defend himself. He must grasp me. Can he see me? He could run past me. I would be left here. I feel his hand grip this form and his consciousness opens to me. I burrow into him, pulling him down. I am like a drowning man thrown into the sea by a shipwreck, dragging myself to the surface by clawing past my fellows. What's happening? The mortal screams, but he is silenced by the darkness. The endless darkness I have just escaped, and I have eyes. I can see the falling rain, the muck, the blood of this slaughtering field. In front of me stand two weary knights with spears. I cut them apart and drink in their forms, recrafting this body to my needs. They are weak. I must move quickly. I must find a better wielder, a better host. Around me are only the dead and dying. I hear their souls retreating from this world. The fighting has not ended. It's moved inside the city walls. I force my new shape, limping, crawling, toward the sound of battle, toward a better host. I roar, but not in triumph, never in triumph. I will drink from that city, but I will achieve only a grotesque mockery of my former glory. I was shaped by the stars and the purity of my aspect. I was light and reason given shape. I defended this world in the greatest battle ever known. Now, blood and ichor drips from the stolen flesh as it decays.
Jesus, what an edgy manifesto. Sorry, okay. Like, I get it. I get it. It sucks being stuck in a sword and not being able to live up to your former glory, but come on, man. we got the point like 10 lines ago. You don't need more, do we? But I guess being stuck in a sword would lead you to becoming pretty talkative about your misery and despair. So I guess it makes sense. But this feels very edgy. Oh, I feel so bad inside of this sword. Come, mortals, I must drink your blood, but I can never regain my former glory. Okay, anyways.
The muscles and bones struggle, tear, and protest the abomination I have become. I take a breath. No, Aatrox, I say, my voice wet and echoing of the dead that surround me. We will go onward, and onward, and onward, until the final oblivion comes. And just in case you didn't believe me, it's right here. I was shaped by stars and the purity of my aspect. It is likely that the Sunborn or the Darkin were created by the Targonians to help them in their conquest against the Void. But before we go into the final piece of the Darkin lore, we should talk about Varus. His lore was also changed, so let's have a look at what happened to him. Regardless of what he would later become, Varus was once a paragon of loyalty and honor, a skilled archer in the ancient Shuriman Empire. He was appointed as a temple warden in the eastern states, and he held his duty sacred above all else. During the earliest stages of the war with Icathia, even though it lay far from that cursed place, Varus's homeland was attacked. While other wardens abandoned their posts to join the defense of the outlying villages, he alone remained, screaming in anguish with every arrow he loosed. For he had chosen to uphold his oaths rather than return home to protect his own family. Emissaries from the ascended host found him kneeling in solemn meditation amid the corpses of his foes. It was said that his cold gaze unsettled even the god warriors themselves, and yet, in recognition of his noble sacrifice, Varus was offered a place in their ranks. As one of the great ascended, he was utterly consumed by his pursuit of vengeance against the Icathians and the voidling horrors they had unleashed. It is likely that Varus did not even fully comprehend Shurima's ultimate victory in that war.
I feel like I am missing quite a lot of context clues here because I don't understand what all of the names, like the Sharimans and the Ikathians and the Voidlings and the fighting and the war and shit. Maybe I need or anyways.
So twisted had his mind become, nor the Empire's fall centuries later. Atrocity after atrocity blurred together, leaving him as a withdrawn colors killer, reshaped and sent into battle countless times by his degenerate brethren. Their name became feared throughout the known world, the Darkin, warring among themselves. They destroyed any other who stood against them. With his crystalline bow, Varus assassinated enemy commanders and champions, helping the Darkin defeat entire mortal armies with ever greater ease. Eventually, Varus was cornered by Vastayan Moonstalkers and human mages in service of a golden armored warrior queen of Valoran. They bound him within his bow, leaving him to howl in impotent rage. By then, the raw corrupting influence of the Darkin was known. And yet, still the queen chose to wield the deadly weapon in the final days of the war, gladly sacrificing herself for a greater victory. In the months that followed, the queen carried Varus to the First Lands, those that would be later known as Ionia. Now made monstrous by the bow's power, her last act was to command her fellows to bury her alive in the lightless well, sunk deep beneath a mountain temple overlooking the village of Pallas. And there, Varus was imprisoned, both by the natural magics of Ionia and the ritual ministrations of the temple guardians. And after that, we all know what happened.
No, we don't. I don't know what
So
happened.
now it's time to have a look at the legend of the Darkin, the final piece of the Darkin lore. The Darkin are thrice cursed, once by the ancient enemy they faced, again by the fall of their glorious empire, and finally by the betrayal that had damned them for all eternity. When the rebels of Ikathia foolishly unleashed the Void in battle, Shurima's defense was led, as ever, by the legendary Ascended. Imbued with the power of the Sun Disk, these god warriors towered over mortal soldiers, wielding magic and blade with equal ease, and eventually they were victorious. Even so, the horrors of the war took a heavy toll, and those who lived to remember it were perhaps never quite as they once were. Centuries later, with the loss of mighty Azir at the very moment of his ascension, Shurima fell. Although apparently immortal, the god warriors had been born human. Gradually, with no emperor to lead them, many of the surviving Ascended began to falter in purpose as their older petty ambitions resurfaced. They taught themselves forbidden sorceries, and came to view themselves as the rightful inheritors of the world.
Is Kane?
Notice that the story mentions the Darkin teaching themselves forbidden sorceries. This is
Looks
likely
like it.
blood magic, and it is the reason why they have all sorts of shapes. There is even a piece of art describing what they did with the magic, crafting their own flesh and armor with equal ease, until they were completely unrecognizable as the noble warriors they had once been. The sacred mortal populace named these tyrants Darkin, a whispered curse translating roughly in the old tongue as the Fallen.
Okay.
But even the Darkin could not escape the sickness of soul that had come from fighting against the Void for so long. After centuries of uneasy alliance, they inevitably turned against one another, and so began the Great Darkin War. This conflict spread from Shurima to Valoran and beyond. The renegade god warriors and the armies they raised were unstoppable, and entire nations were
Wait,
crushed.
what? This Sion? This is Kane jumping out of Sion onto Adarius, right? Oh yeah, holy shit. Okay, so these people are pretty cool. Like, they were ancient Omega warriors, super strong. And they were fighting the Void. They got corrupted by fighting the Void too long, and started using blood magic to, like, change their form and become even stronger. So that's why they look like demons, pretty much, all of them. Okay.
Between them. It seemed
Super
as
fucking
though
cool
this
backstory.
would be the end of all things. Until, unexpectedly, the mages of Runeterra learned how to contain the remaining Darkin. Through secrecy and cunning artifice, the physical forms of the Ascended could be merged with the celestial power in their hearts, and all of it bound within the weapons they bore. With their leaders imprisoned forever, the rampaging hordes were broken and slain. These Darkin weapons were hidden, many of them carefully guarded by the mortal civilizations that grew in the aftermath. For it was clear that such power could be locked away, but never destroyed. And should such power fall into the wrong hands, the Darkin will surely rise once more.
Okay, I think that's enough. Oh, now we know a little bit more about Aatrox. I'm gonna jump straight into practice tool now. Try him out. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.